at 11:58 p.m., under air so thick it felt like a wet towel. I watched a ladder truck and 2 cruisers slide to a stop in front of my neighbor's house. Sirens easing down, red and blue washing over vinyl siding like a confession. And the woman who'd spent months trying to grind me down forgot how to swallow for a second. A firefighter stepped out quiet as a judge and said, "Ma'am, stay right there." And in the small silence that followed, I heard the click of handcuffs in my head, clear as a bell. That's the sound of justice if you've never heard it, and yeah, that happened. But let me back up, because none of it makes sense unless you know who I am and what she tried to take. I'm Jack Mercer, Finnish carpenter. Husband to Lena, who teaches 4th grade. Dad to Noah, who can outsaw me on a good day and outstare me on a bad one. We moved to Maple Crest in Cedar Ridge for the quiet. You know the type, cul-de-sacs matching mailboxes, lawn crews like a Saturday orchestra, and on my little corner lot stood a cedar shed my grandfather built in 1976, the first place I ever drove a nail that actually stayed put. We kept tomatoes along the fence, a compost bin. The raccoons treated like a tasting menu, and for 3 weeks I honestly believed I could keep my head down and let the HOA do their HOA thing without bothering me. Then, at 6:04 a.m., on a Monday, my doorbell camera caught a smile that never reached a pair of eyes, and a clipboard that looked like a badged Patricia Alder chair of the board Trish. To everyone who likes being told no. With a pearly grin, she handed me a $400 fine for an unapproved exterior structure and said, sweet as a lemon, "Standards were updated last week, please keep up." Shed was older than the neighborhood, older than her laminated rules, older than the font. They printed them in, and she tilted her head, like I'd asked the clouds not to rain. That was one day. One day, two, was a $150 citation. Because my contractor trailer sat in my driveway long enough for me to unload a table saw. Day 3 came with a blurry photo claiming my grass exceeded 6 inches, even though I measured it on camera at 3.5. I kept it polite, you know what I mean? I figured it was bureaucracy, a mistake, a memo I missed. I asked for the signed minutes. Where Section 12B got changed, I asked for the vote count, the notice, all that paper trail they love to wave. No answer, then the trash company skipped us. The dispatcher said. We were flagged by the association. The streetlight on our corner went dark, while the others stayed bright like a catalog. And somewhere in the middle of those little cuts, I heard the message behind the fines. You don't belong. If we say you don't belong, I still tried to be decent then. I overheard Trish at the clubhouse talking to a suit with shoes that cost more than my router. Corner lot is the last holdout. She said, if we resolve the structure issue, the developer can adjust the Phase 2 footprint. I can deliver clean sightlines in 60 days. Deliver like I was a package. She could slap a label on my stomach, did that. Penny Taste, my neighbor. Harold, retired mailman. Ball cap permanently fused to his head. Shuffled over that night with coffee. He doesn't drink, and said she'd offered him $100 to help the neighborhood by snapping photos of my violations. He told her he only points a camera at grandkids and dogs. Then he squeezed my shoulder and said, "Document everything, son. She ain't the weather." So I stapled a legal pad. Inside the cabinet, like a war log, I stuck trail cams along the fence, one on the shed, one on the gate, a motion sensor on the trailer hitch. I became the guy who whispers into his phone at 2 a.m. with the porch light off. And that's when it went from annoying to unsafe, a 2-foot strip of grass burned brown overnight with a smell too sweet to be summer. The cam caught a gloved hand and a spray nozzle face half covered, but the gait that fast annoyed March. That was a signature 2 nights later. The lug nuts on my trailer loosened just enough to chatter. I chalked witness marks. Next morning, 3 were rotated 10 degrees. Not weather a hand, I took the folder to Jason Cole, a rumpled blazer lawyer I used to hang drywall with. He grinned like a fox and said, "You're not crazy. Ask for signed minutes. Demand due process. Keep collecting judges. Hate sabotage mixed with paper abuse." I also called Deputy Maria Alvarez at the sheriff's office. She told me to let the cameras write the story, while I hold the pen. Trish kept showing up with lines like, "Being a good neighbor means following our standards." I'd point to the shed and say, "That's not a junker boat on blocks. That's my grandfather's work." She'd nod, like I'd recited a poem at the wrong time. Emotions are lovely rules. Are rules, then? A certified letter hit a pay. $250 or face a lien compliance hearing. In 10 days, they can suspend amenities and coordinate with vendors, which I already felt with the trash and lights that night. I sat at the kitchen table, the house quiet, grief and anger duetting in my ribs, and I asked Jason, "What if we make it impossible for a developer to touch my lot for 100 years?" He said. "Conservation easement, if a land trust takes it, you've tied development tighter than a banjo." So we walked the yard with a man named Mike from the Piedmont Land Trust under a sky full of fireflies. He looked at the shed like a chapel and said, "Little pockets matter," and we filed $500 and a week of signatures. I told no one, especially not the woman who thought she could deliver my corner like a pizza. Meanwhile, the safety committee started patrolling like mall cops with new clipboards. Susan in spotless sneakers, photographing my compost bin, like it had a criminal record. Martin taking notes on dust migration, while the driveway sat still as a painting. A county water inspector named Carol knocked, apologized, checked everything, then told me my setup was cleaner than most commercial installs, and she'd file a note the next day. The board sent a chart claiming my water use rivaled a golf course. My well pump is the size of a toddler. It couldn't pull those numbers on caffeine and prayer. The cameras picked up a rhythm. 12 a.m., a flashlight along the back. 30, the gate latch lifted and set back like someone rehearsing too. 3, the purposeful walk again. The ball cap. The same height, the same impatience. Harold brought me a recording. He snuck from his Camry outside her garage, Trish on speaker with a man named Jim, saying if he won't remove the shed, we can create a hazard that forces an emergency compliance order. Faulty lighting. Brush accidents happen. You could hear the pen scratching the plan in her voice. Jason's voice went razor sharp. Conspiracy set a smart trap. Not an obvious one. So I upgraded a trail cam to a thermal unit and pointed it where the dry pine straw met the shed. Set it to stream to my phone and to a private link Maria could open from her cruiser. Asked Carol to swing by Thursday evening so the rumor mill would churn, and I installed a new motion sensor on the conduit. With a little blinking light you could see from the street. If you were the kind who notices blinks, Thursday felt like the air was holding its breath. Noah at a friend's place. Lena pretending to read me. Pacing at 11:41. The thermal buzzed my wrist like a wasp. 2 warm shapes slipped through the hedge gap. 1, confident. 1, hovering. A jug glugged. You know that sound? the whisper. I knew by cadence said, "It'll read like a short. He doesn't maintain this old thing when the siding catches we document and call, and by then, the match flared a little tongue of light, and a line of flame skittered across the straw. The thermal went white hot. Maria's message popped. Hold. Don't move, and while I stood still, the ladder truck turned onto our street like it had been idling around the corner all night. The foam hissed, the flames sighed out, and Trish froze with the jug in her hand and her ball cap off. Like a stage light found her. The accomplice did what accomplices do and tried to vanish into a shadow that wasn't there. The firefighter said, "Ma'am, step away from the line," Maria said. "Patricia Alder, you're detained pending investigation for attempted arson and conspiracy." "Don't say a word," Trish said, 8 anyway. "Because guilty mouths run," I said, "Run. Saw what your reflection in my window while you tried to burn my grandfather's shed. Not my best moment. But I'm human. The foam dried on my boots by morning. The hearing at 9 a.m. looked like a wedding where nobody smiles. Folding chairs, coffee, and cardboard. More neighbors than usual, because rumor is faster than Wi-Fi. Trish's chair sat empty. The vice chair. Brent said we'd proceed in her absence. I stood with a folder heavy enough to change weather. I'm not a speech guy, but facts carry their own weight. I played the thermal video on the projector. Heaters' blooming white faces captured by the ladder truck's camera. You could hear the room gasp in little stones. I played Harold's recording. Tinny, but clear enough. Accidents happen. I put the board's unsigned minutes next to their mailed rule update. I set down their golf course, water chart beside Carol's official inspection. I showed photos of chalk marks on lugs before and after, a hardware receipt with a timestamp and a clerk's name tag catching the words, Alder, when she leaned to sign. Brent said we shouldn't jump to conclusions. And I said I respected process so much, I filed a conservation easement with the land trust last week, and development on my corner is off the table for as long as my son's grandkids want to whittle a stick in the shade. The murmurs felt like relief. Maria stepped forward just to be seen and said the county would handle the criminal side, and the board might consider interim leadership a motion to remove. Trish passed so fast. The pen squeaked, Brent. Voted yes, looking at his shoes, and that's where I end it for you. So at the moment, the person who tried to write my life into a developer's blueprint became a problem. The room itself rejected no parade, no chest beating. Just a nameplate turned face down, and a shed that still smells a little like campfire reminders matter. So tell me, is a rule still a rule when it's written in a back room and used like a weapon? Or is a community only as decent as the folks willing to say no when paper gets mean? You know what I mean? Drop your take in the comments. Argue with me. Tell me if I went too far or not far enough. Share your HOA stories, so the rest of us know we're not crazy. And if this hit a nerve, hit subscribe. So the next time someone sells stamps,